Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CDL podcast channel. In this episode today, we are going to be doing strict reactions to Major 1. Full disclosure, when we're recording this, the Major just ended about 10-15 minutes ago, so this is fresh, raw reactions. We haven't seen any news that has come out. This will probably be uploaded on Monday. We haven't seen any news that's come out following the Major. If there's been any team changes, we're going to do another podcast later in the week to do our predictions, but we didn't want to throw all reactions, news, and predictions into one episode because that would have led for an extremely long, maybe 3-hour plus episode, and that is just not something people have time to listen to. So we're going to do strict reactions to the Major in this one. Crazy Major it was, but before we dive into all the action, Kyle, how you doing today?
Oh my gosh, I forgot how good it is to watch Call of Duty on LAN, especially with the crowd and everything. So I'm jazzed up. Just watched a weekend full of amazing LAN matches. A great event. So I'm ready to dive into this.
Yeah, it was a fantastic event. The crowd was, a lot of people are saying, one of the best NA crowds we've ever seen at a Call of Duty event. They were loud all weekend, and you're right. There's just something so different about watching Call of Duty when there's a crowd screaming in the background at every big play. But it was really fun to watch. If you guys enjoy watching this podcast, please be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube, and follow and leave a review on the audio platforms. But without further ado, we're just going to dive into it. Kind of going to be going over each team's weekend, maybe some reactions going forward to what their roster might look like or what their team might look like going forward. Maybe some people who are on the hot seat, and we're just kind of going to go over the big storylines from the weekend. So first of all, obviously the big story from the weekend: Optic Texas crowned Major 1 champions at their own home major. Um, Pretty awesome to see because I think Optic's basically going to be the home team in every major. They're going to have the most fans, but this is technically their major, so crowd is almost all Optic fans, and they were going crazy for the team. It was kind of a cool thing to see. Hastro absolutely hit stick Shotzi when he came on the stage. I thought Shotzi was about to have a concussion. Hastro tackled him to the ground. They were going crazy. Scump and Dashy were jumping up in front. I think we might have seen some tears from Dashy. It was a pretty awesome scene with the crowd all screaming, and that's why Land's the best. It's better than seeing a team jump up and down in their bedroom or something because it's just not the same as when you have the crowd screaming in the background. So shout out to Optic. Congrats on the win. What do you think, Kyle? Are they the best team in the game right now?
I would say yes. I was just waiting. Since I started following competitive COD in real time, it's like we see Optic be just good enough. And they've obviously had struggles since franchising came in. Uh, and it just kept. It felt like I was like this weekend. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Waiting for Optic to just like implode or fall apart or run into a brick
Mm-hmm.
wall of a better team. But they really rose to the occasion. Um, I'm super impressed with the level of gameplay that I saw out of every single one of those players.
Yeah,
Because it felt like in different maps, different people were stepping up. Like you had Scump go crazy with the auto on Gav. You had Illy in the grand finals alone, probably. Like if there was a grand finals MVP, I think Illy probably made a good case for it.
100%. He was the grand finals
Um,
MVP.
I mean, all throughout. I mean, you had Dashy have some individual insane moments, and Shotzi seemed to really elevate himself up in certain maps as well. So I mean, each one of those players totally deserves this win. I think right now, I don't think you can really make an argument that they aren't the best team.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree with that. They have to be the best team. I would say the only way that the winner of this event wouldn't be considered the best team if it was like a really random team that made a hot run, like a team that we weren't even like talking about as a top 4 team. Like if one of the losers bracket teams made like a run to win it all, or maybe like a Boston would have completed the run or something like that. Like a team that we weren't at all talking about as a top team would have made the run and won it. Then maybe you could make an argument that the team didn't win this major was the best team. Or maybe if it was like a close 5-4 Optic Faze and Optic came from losers bracket, like this would have been a super tight series, round 11 final game. And you were like, okay, maybe Faze is still the best. But the fact that Optic was able to reverse sweep them earlier in the tournament and then beat them 5-2, granted, it was probably like the closest 5-2 besides that first map. Every map was super, super close. Like Faze could have won all the maps. Optic really could have won all the maps. I mean, apart from that Gavutu map one where Optic kind of dominated them. But with Optic beating Faze twice, who we considered the best team in the game coming into the tournament, I feel like you have to say they're the best team in the game right now. Some really weird trends happened this weekend. If you've been following COD for a long time and you followed Optic, their S&D prowess kind of carried them through the weekend, which is extremely weird. Optic, I can't think of a time that Optic has really ever won through S&D prowess. They've always been a respawn dominant team that maybe has hot stretches of search and destroy, but they've never had a stretch of search and destroy, at least to my knowledge, over the course of a weekend. And it was really weird because like this was the first time I think Optic were winning off being the more fundamentally sound team. Like even throughout the dynasty, like you hear Formal talk about it all the time. He was like, yeah, half the time we didn't even practice. We just showed up and gunned people in jetpacks. Like they were just the better team and they just gun everyone and that's how they win games. But they were looking like the most fundamentally sound team. They weren't really giving up any number advantages in search and destroy. They were winning. They had like the highest win percentage at like a 40% going to the grand finals in 3v4s. They just look so fundamentally sound, and we know that their talent is there. They're a top talented team in the league, like maybe up there with Faze is the only other team. But today and this weekend, their fundamentals were insane.
Yeah, I mean, seeing the search and destroy, especially, I know that I think they lost the first two searches in the grand final, coincidentally.
Yeah, they did.
Um,
They blew the
but
Desert Siege. They
yeah,
should
yeah,
have won that one.
yeah. But to get there, they had to play, some other good teams as well. So I don't know. The search really impressed me all throughout the weekend. It just seemed like they were like valuing their lives a lot more. Just in not even in search, but like in respawn as well. Like there was a lot more untraded kills that I noticed.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I think we saw a totally different. We've seen Optic. After that O2 start, people were, maybe myself included, we were a little bit hesitant about, what's this? Is this team going to turn it around? We
Yeah,
saw them finish 3-2 in the stage, and then it just seems like they've been improving, and like on post match interview, Scump even himself was like, yeah, we've been grinding hard, like going over VOD and stuff. So that's really encouraging to hear. As an outside fan and stuff, because that's been one of our big, out of game
always forever
criticisms
with
of them,
Optic.
is that they just, they can, sure, they can gun with the best of them, but when it comes to like putting in the extra hours of work and, really grinding, that's maybe where they fall short to teams like, your Phases and your, other top tier teams like that. Um, so yeah, really impressed. I just can't say enough good things about this, about what I saw from them this weekend.
I feel like this is also the first bold prediction from our early before the season bold predictions that shot down. I believe you had one that you said Optic won't win a major this year.
I think I did. So I'll go hand up mea culpa. You can come at me. My Twitter will be in the description, I believe. But yeah, I mean, like I said though, maybe it was like the conditioning of the last 2 years of CDL where I was just like, I was just waiting for that match, like when they were going up against Optic and in winners and stuff. I was like, oh man, this is
Yeah, when they were
or
down 2-0.
yeah. I was
Mhm.
like, oh, this is tough. Like, what's gonna happen here? Uh, so yeah,
One yeah,
yeah, that's my thought.
one thing I'll say about Optic throughout this whole weekend is it wasn't like there was one player that had a down weekend or one player that had a super up weekend. They all stepped up at different points throughout the weekend to really win this event. Like Dashy is crowned the MVP for the event. Obviously, he was clearly far and away the best main AR at the event. He had easily the best stats. He was frying the whole weekend, especially in search and destroy. He had major improvements. Remember that first 2 week, all the talks was Dashy's bad in search and destroy this year. He was 4-15 through the first two matches when they were 0-2, and he was an absolute demon in search and destroy. He was frying overall in the whole weekend, easily the best main AR in the game right now. But other people were stepping up. Illy was struggling a little bit earlier in the event, it seemed, in respawns, especially those first two maps against Faze. I tweeted something about it where Illy and Shotzzy, they got dominated in the map one against Faze the first time around, not in the grand finals. And the slaying wasn't there. And then Shotzzy and Illy both came around, obviously, for the reverse sweep. But even in that series, Scump, they were down 2-0, and Scump absolutely cooked. And then in the map 4 hardpoint to keep the reverse sweep alive, Scump went like almost double, triple positive on Gav hardpoint with an AR, and he was getting hyped on the stage. So he stepped up big time in order to keep them in a winner's bracket. And then obviously Shotzzy the whole weekend in Search and Destroy. We were talking about this before we hopped on the podcast. He is so tough to deal with in Search and Destroy. He's probably the player that's most similar to Abezy. That's what he is reminding me of this weekend. Like, he's all over the map. He's running all around. You just like, it's so hard to keep track of him because he gets a first blood or something, and most times the player will stop, be relatively close to where they got that first blood, and you can kind of pin him in and try to work that trade. But Shotzzy was like, get the first blood, run to the other team spawn, run around, like take some weird route that nobody knows. And like, he was just all over the map. He was untradeable. He was a beast in Search and Destroy. And then obviously Illy in that grand final. Illy was undoubtedly, like you said, if there was a finals MVP, it was Illy. He had the most kills on the team by 1 over Scump. He had the best KD with a 1.17, just ahead of Scump with a 1.12. And he had second most damage on the team behind Shotzzy. All of them are playing a huge part. So that's the other big thing, is it was a super balanced effort. At different times, all 4 of them were the MVP of matches, which is a big thing, showing that one person isn't hard carrying them, where like it's not like Shotzzy was their hard carry. Shotzzy actually had the worst KD in the finals by a pretty wide margin. He was 0.16 lower than the next player on the team, which was Dashy, which is a big thing going forward for them. I feel like they had nobody hard carrying them, and that's the recipe for success for a team. That's the recipe that Faze has. They have nobody that really hard carries. They can have a different MVP every map, so I'm looking forward to a lot more Faze versus Optic battles, because let me tell you, I'm sure we're going to see another one, and I'm sure Faze is going to find a way to come out on top. But for this one, Optic was definitely the best.
Yeah, like I said, like I said at the beginning, like I just felt like I saw so many great, individual performances in various stages of this LAN. But to what you said as well, like it didn't feel like we were watching one standout performance and then everyone else just kind of falls
Yeah,
off.
nobody
And
was a liability.
yeah, and sometimes that's what we see with Optic, like of old, where we'd see like Scump go off, like even last year at Champs when he was going off on that raid, um, and no one else was helping, or it just seemed like he was just lacking that last little bit of help or whatever. Whereas in this major, we saw he's going off on Gav, and then everyone else is picking up, like they're just elevating their games as well, or Illy's going off in the grand final, and everyone else is like stepping their game up alongside him as well. Um, Dashy's playing out of his mind in the search, like he's like first blooding everybody on Tuscan, and
Yeah,
Shotzi's sliding around the map like he's on one side of the map, and then 2 seconds
he
later he's like
glides.
he's over somewhere else. So I just thought that their cohesive play was really impressive. Um, so yeah, I mean, Optic fans should really be happy with what they saw this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things before we move on to our next team. I mean, we don't really have to forecast any potential people on the hot seat for this team. Obviously, there's nobody in the hot seat for this team. Don't have to talk about that. Forecast going forward for this team, I guess my big thing, I guess one more thing about the whole like one player carrying or holding down a team is we have seen teams like that in the past where like old Optic, like way back in the day when they had like Nade Shot, Merc, Big T, Scump was like a 1.5 every event. And if he wasn't dropping a 1.5 on a map, they would lose every time. Kind of the same thing, like the more recent example I think of. I don't know why, there's probably a better example, but the first thing that came to mind was BO4 Reciprocity. And that was a team with Wuskin and Zed, Alex, Shawnee, and Dylan Codd, who hasn't been in the league at all this year. But Dylan was absolutely a freak on that team, and he was the guy that was dropping a 1.4 in every series. And it was like if he had a map where he went negative, they got 100-point clubbed. Like he was the hard carry so bad, and that's never going to be the case with this Optic team because they all step up at different times. So that's obviously a strength of the team. You never want to be so reliant on one player where if he's having a bad series, you just kind of fall apart. And that's what we've seen with maybe some teams that we'll get to coming up here in a few minutes. But I mean, big picture takeaways, forecast for this team going forward. I expect them to continue to do extremely well, be a contender to win each major, be around on each Sunday. I guess my big thing for them going forward is don't get complacent. We heard them in the interview say they're not going to get complacent, but we've seen this before with Optic teams. The last time they won an event under the Optic brand was the first event in Vegas in BO4, and then from there on, they had like a couple more top threes, but never hit another grand final, and they seem to kind of just get complacent. So hopefully they finally have learned their lesson and they keep grinding, because if they keep grinding the way they were, they're going to have a chance to be around on each Sunday, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think that they will get complacent. Maybe that's just me wishful thinking, but I think after them, seeing and hearing this crowd, um, they're gonna be hungry for more and more and more. Um, and
Yeah.
I don't think they would be happy with just letting teams like FaZe come back, because we know that they're going to be the next team we talk about. But we pretty much probably both agree that they're not going to be kept down for long. And
No.
if
Nope.
Optic win this one, and then like your phases win the next like two or three or something, like, and kind of overshadow Optic, I don't think that's going to sit well with them. So I think they're going to stay hungry. I don't know if you can really expect to win every single LAN
No.
major, because we've just seen so many teams with so much potential in this weekend alone. But
Mhm.
um, and we know teams get better, and new strats evolve and the game evolves. Like, we're gonna see Control get revamped here.
Finally.
Um,
We'll talk about that maybe in a little bit.
yeah, but I mean, so the game doesn't sit still. Um, so yeah, I mean, I just hope that, like you said, history does say that Optic do fall off in the mid-season, so hopefully they can kind of rewrite the script there.
Yeah, and whether or not you're an Optic fan, I feel like everybody can at least hope for them to be around on Sundays, because the viewership is bumped up. It's just more hype in the venue when Optic's around, because whether you like it or not, they have the most fans, and the energy in the venue is just something else. I remember my first event I went to, BO4 Champs. The energy in the venue was crazy because Optic were in winners finals going into Sunday. So they obviously ended up winning that first map, and I've never felt an energy like that. Uh, the venue was going crazy, and then obviously you know where it went from there. They lost 6 straight maps to get eliminated after winning that first map. But when they're in winners finals, or they're around on a Sunday, and other teams like Faze or 100 Thieves are also around, and then you've got a couple EU teams like Toronto and London. It's just everybody's happy. You've got the EU fans happy. You've got Optic fans happy. There's a big crowd of Faze and Thieves fans. Like those major fan bases being alive on a Sunday just makes it more exciting. You talked about that control though. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit at the end of the podcast, but I'm excited for that change because, or maybe we'll talk about it with Faze here. We can move on. Faze had a pretty wild weekend. They finished as the runner up. Um, Looked like for a little bit they were just going to cruise their way. I would say when they got up 2-0 on Optic, it looked like they were about to cruise their way. Abezy was putting his hand to his ear saying, "Where's the crowd? Come on, where are you now?" And obviously that got turned into a meme. But FaZe looked like they were on their way to just dominate again and win the first LAN when they were up 2-0 on Optic. Obviously, they fall down to losers. And then it looked like they were going to get eliminated top 6 for a second there. They were down 2-0 to 100 Thieves, LA Thieves, and then they get the reverse sweep on. And then from there on out, they kind of dominated. I believe they went back-to-back 3-0s. Or they lost one map to London. Yeah, they go 3-0, 3-1 after beating LA Thieves in the reverse sweep. Fault Optic in the finals. I'd say overall pretty good weekend from FaZe. I mean, like people might overreact and like say some crazy things about them, but they were in the grand finals. They were closing one map out against Optic away from probably running through the winners bracket side of things. Uh, I mean, there's no way you're hitting a panic button on FaZe. They're going to be here on Sundays. I'm still feeling pretty confident that they're going to find a way to win at least one event. So no panic for FaZe. Overall, pretty good weekend. Just a little bit of inconsistencies from even Simp and Abezy at times. Arcitys for sure. Cellium was pretty good overall on the weekend, but just inconsistencies that we're not used to seeing from FaZe.
Yeah, you know, you have to put things in perspective. They finished runner up in this.
Yeah. And
I
every map in
mean,
the grand finals was close. They could have easily
yeah,
won it.
yeah, and so I mean, it's easy to say like, oh man, like FaZe didn't win. What's going on? But that I think that's more of a credit to Optic. But focusing on FaZe, like, yeah, they were really all over the place this weekend. We saw Simp and Abezy have some, weird, stretches of like they would just kind of go cold, or that they couldn't get a
Yeah.
kill at times. I think
I
Abezy
mean,
had a donut
do you know
in
what Simp
S&D.
dropped in the KD wise in the finals over those 7 games?
I don't. I would say like something between like a point 0.7 and a point 0.8.
Yeah, he dropped exactly a point 0.8, which is wild. He also had the second lowest damage. Dashy had the least damage of all players in the finals. Simp only had 180 about more, but point 0.8 for Simp in the finals. I can't imagine we're going to see that too much the rest of the year.
Yeah, and like I felt like exactly what you were talking about in that winners final, uh, or winners semi. Sorry, when Faze v Optic and Faze go up 2-0. The Bocage map one listening. Abezy's like he's just like cooking them in the comms. He's like, these
Yeah.
guys effing suck. And I was like, oh my gosh. He's like, because I was trying to catch up because I was kind of like running around on Saturday. So I was like catching up. And I heard Abezy. I was like, oh man, he's on fire. He's
Yeah, when
cooking.
you hear your teammates screaming that, you're just like full confidence, ego challenge everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And then obviously uh they get reverse swept. Dashy, puts his hand on his neck with the choke. It's just that whole winter semis was a meme. It's gonna get memed for the rest of the season. Um, but and then they go down to losers. They almost get 3-0'd by Thieves, and then they pull off the reverse sweep, like you said. And then, like today, I was even texting you or DMing you. I was like, "Man, FaZe just look untouchable." They were like 3-0, then
Mhm.
3-1. It just felt like they were just like saving up their energy for the grand final because it was going to be their third straight match. Um, so definitely an endurance battle today with having to
Yeah,
maintain focus.
what was wild about that start to the grand final with Optic winning the first map 250 to 130? The most wild part about that was typically like remember last year that Major 5 final Røkkr
Yeah,
Ultra, they got like 40 point clubbed or
yeah,
something in that
yeah. It
opening hard
was
point cuz like I figure there's no way Optic was winning the first map just because FaZe are coming off two matches on the day like they're
their
getting the
thumbs are
momentum
warm.
going. They're warm. They've played 7 maps on the day. Like their guns are hot. Optics probably scrimming backstage against Hitch and TST and Embos or something. Like maybe General's back there warming up. You got like the squad of Sender, General, Rambo, and Embos or something. Like coaches and people warming them up. So like I figured they were gonna come out cold. Phase will smoke a map one, and then I'll be like, okay, we're warm. Let's get into the series. So that was huge for Optic, obviously. But one thing also is I saw Arcitys obviously understandably frustrated with what went on in that control where he started like lagging on LAN or his PC started having issues or something. And then he tweeted like immediately after that, like unbelievable that he started lagging or had PC issues and he was super frustrated with it. And people were just like spamming his comments with like lose, take it like a man, which people need to chill. I have never been in the situation, obviously, where I've been in a grand finals at a major land playing for that much money. But I can imagine, as a competitor, you're pretty frustrated. So the frustration coming out from him and saying like he's pissed that that happened because let's be honest, it looked like, especially in his brain, pretty justified to feel like you were going to win that if you don't start skipping around when you're up 18-5 on lives. Obviously, they don't win it. Optic wins the map, but for people hating on Arcitys for tweeting that, it's kind of wild because I mean, I don't know how you couldn't be frustrated. You just lost a finals of a tournament. You had issues that you were for sure out of your control. So people hating on RCs need to chill. But I mean, big storylines for this team going forward. Nobody's on the hot seat. Obviously, once again, don't have to talk about it with this team. I fully expect them to be involved in every single Sunday for every tournament for the rest of the year. My bold prediction that I had before the year, I kind of randomly threw this one out there as a super hot take, is 4 different teams will win the majors. I feel pretty good now that FaZe didn't win the first one because they're obviously the team that you'd probably expect to be the potential multi-time winner. But I feel pretty good now that FaZe didn't win the first one with how many teams we saw be competitive. But you got any big picture things going forward for this team? I expect them to continue getting better and be involved in every Sunday with a chance to win multiple events still.
No, like yeah, like you said, it's good that Optic got it out of the way. So now it clears the path for 4 different major winners to come in. But yeah, I mean, I would, like you said, I would imagine FaZe are going to be there on every Sunday, at least playing in like winners finals or losers semis or something. Like um yeah. So it's tough to get them down too hard, and
Yeah.
they're playing more of the villain role. Like there was like they won a map and there was like crickets in the crowd. Like, it just
Yeah,
showed the,
they're booing. They were chanting overrated all the time.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's just gotta like, I mean, if you channel that into positive like energy going forward, like, chip on the shoulder kind of deal. Now that they lost, like, they think we're overrated. We won a damn ring last year, and they're chanting overrated. Like, who are the
They're gonna come on demon time.
like the whole like Conor McGregor, like, who the fuck is this guy or something, like, um. So yeah, I mean, I expect them to channel this, and
For
they're
sure.
too good. They got too many positive,
Yeah,
coaching staff, and they know that they're capable of, you know, winning a couple more maps and winning a chip. So
yeah, I mean, the only thing that could ever potentially break up this roster, break up this team is internal issues. Like, there is no way that if they channel their energy the right way and they do the right study and practice, they're always gonna be uh it's just like the Optic Dynasty. They're too good. Only thing that can break them up is internal struggles. That's what broke them up. That's the only thing that could potentially do anything going to this phase, going forward for this phase team. Only thing that could do anything or affect them is internal struggles. If they potentially keep losing and maybe have some struggles like that, I don't anticipate that happening because they seem to be pretty good friends and have pretty good chemistry. But we can move on to our next team if you're ready for that.
Mhm.
And that is London Royal Ravens. They finished third place at this event. Pretty impressive. It feels like it's a little surprising in a way because people were maybe underrating them, but it shouldn't be surprising because they were the 2 or 3 seed coming into this event. So a top three
Yeah.
finish for them shouldn't be shocking, but it's very good to see because I guess of the top seeds, they were the one we had the most question about because they were the team by far with the least experience in major tournaments coming into this one. They impress, obviously. They handle LAG in the first round. And then they pull off that 3-1 over Ultra. Maybe kind of a impressive win because Ultra, it's the battle of the EU teams. And a lot of people were expecting Ultra to win that one because they're obviously the more experienced, the team that's super icy. And Ravens handled them pretty easily, to be honest, moving into that winners finals against Optic. And then they fall short on Sunday, lose in winners finals, and then lose in the losers finals to Faze. To be honest, it seemed like they just kind of ran out of gas. That was the exact thought that was going through my head. It seems like they just ran out of gas. I still fully believe they have the talent to compete with the top teams and could find themselves in a grand final at some point this year. I think that there's maybe they're not going to find themselves around on every Sunday like I expect Optic and Faze to do, but they definitely impressed. They showed that their online matches were not a fluke, and they're a very good team. Maybe just need a little more experience to continue and have enough gas going into Sunday because like Gizmo was frying all weekend and he really struggled on Championship Sunday. But super impressed with this team. I'm super happy that I kind of put all my chips all in on this team and put my faith in them because they definitely paid me off and showed that they're definitely a team that has some potential to continue to finish top 3, maybe make a grand finals, and they should feel pretty confident going forward. And for London fans, you got to be excited. This is by far the best they've looked in terms of the CDL era of Call of Duty.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. My big takeaway for London is like, yeah, for me, they kind of, quote unquote, overachieved on the weekend compared to what I was expecting them to do.
Yeah,
Um, Especially making it that far in winners. Like, if anything, I was expecting them to, like, maybe go down to losers and win a match or two. Probably bowing out to Ultra in the winners side, like a lot of people were thinking. Like, I was kind of in the group think
hmm
there. But yeah, I mean, getting reps under your belt with this with on LAN, and even just playing as a squad and with the crowd and everything, just really impressed by their performance. I was really I don't know, impressed with Zero as well. I felt
I
like
was about
he
to say,
I
if
felt
you
like
don't shout them out,
he
I'm going to.
no, I felt like he really stepped up in a big way. Compared to people really like hyping up Afro and Gizmo, amongst others. But
Nasty played great this weekend too.
yeah, I felt like we saw great glimpses from everyone this weekend, and like my big rallying cry at the beginning of the season, like, just get CDL points, just win matches to get more points,
hmm
just shore up your spot in the league, and I felt like they didn't put a foot wrong, and I feel like, yeah, they definitely just kind of hit a wall. They're running on empty today. I felt like we didn't really see the best that they had to offer.
No,
But there's 3 more majors and champs to make a run at things, and I would definitely not be shocked if we saw them, in again on Sunday with a chance.
But yeah, and the two teams they played today are experienced. Granted, Shotzi and Ilya are a little newer, but the four players in Optic are very experienced at championship Sundays. Same with the four players on Faze. And Ravens are just a little inexperienced with that, and it seems like they ran out of gas. Didn't come in with the fire. Obviously, they were passionate about today, but they just seem to run out of gas, like we said. Which I mean, that's what you expect with a team that doesn't have as much experience. At some point, it's very rare for a team with almost no experience playing deep into tournaments to just come in and beat everyone. Like it often takes a little while to in every esports sport. Maybe you got to lose a couple times to learn what it takes to win, and that's kind of what it seems like this London team did. But I'm glad you shouted out Zero because I've always been a big Zero fan. Everybody knows that, but he deserves a shout out because he was arguably the best player on their team for a lot of the matches this weekend, especially. In a lot of those later matches, you kind of discount the Faze series because they overall just got cooked in the respawns. Nasty and Gizmo were both hovering around a zero point 0.7, and Zero was at a 0.95. Afro was really the only one that cooked for them in that series, but they basically got fried by Faze today, so kind of discount that one. But you look at the Optics series, everybody was at a 0.83 or lower on their team, and Zero had a 1.15, like trying to drag them into the series. And then you even look at that series versus Ultra, he had a 1.38 and improves to what did they say 10-1 against Bance on land.
Mhm.
And Bance had a 0.74, which I have a long-standing contract that I made on the podcast even before Kyle joined the podcast that I never slander Bance, and I'm going to stick to that because ever since he proved me wrong that one time, I will never slander him back in early Cold War. So I'm sticking to that, but it's pretty crazy. I mentioned to you at one point before Bance had that really successful year last year that Zero was the greatest European player of all time. Uh, he's maybe trying to take that throne back this year. Maybe he's coming out for blood. He looks pretty good so far. You gotta say he's maybe number 2 main AR right now in the league behind Dashy as of right now, based on how they've been playing. He's got a very good argument for being number 2 right behind Dashy. Uh, Absolutely cooked Toronto in that series to kind of establish the European dominance. They have the upper hand on the European series now this year. Really impressed by London overall. Like I said, shout out to Zero. I picked him to be the comeback player of the year this year, and he's proved me right so far. I would say he's got that award on lock as of right now. So we'll see if anything changes. But big picture going forward for London. Obviously, like we said, these teams that finish at the top have no roster questions. There's no roster questions on this team. Forecast for them going forward. I'm expecting them to consistently show this. Maybe not make every Sunday, but I'm expecting them to consistently finish top 6 at a minimum and maybe make a run to a grand final or something. And they've got potential to win an event. They're going to play spoiler to some of these top teams. Just got to see them have a little more gas on Sunday, but I'm super optimistic about them going forward.
Yeah, I guess my big picture for Ravens, like you said, there's no real questions this early on with rosters or you know, um, but I guess my forecast big picture for them would be, obviously we know that they can hang with the best of them on these online qualifiers, so I would expect them to, if I was making a bold prediction, I would expect them to start in winners for the rest of the major
Yeah.
lands.
I actually have
I
one other big picture thing too.
Yeah, go for. I mean, that was pretty much all I had, so take it
Search and
away.
destroy. Got to get better. Got to get better. To me, that's what separated
Yeah.
them from the top teams really this weekend. Obviously, against FaZe, they clutch up, come back from like that 5-1, 5-2 deficit on Desert Siege to win a map. But they got to get better in search and destroy. I mean, what are they now on Berlin on the year? Like 1-6, 1-7, and they just kept playing it and they kept losing. It seemed like they were the team. I saw all the London fans complaining about it on Twitter, and rightfully so. It was like every time they were in a 4v2, they had numbers, they threw it. They like definitely blew the most 4v2s or 3v2s or number advantages. And that's another thing with inexperience, to be honest. I mean, these are a lot of younger players, newer to the league. Maybe pressure got to them. I don't know about that because they all fried this weekend. It's not like they're players that can't play under pressure. But they were just throwing away number advantages. They look to really struggle in search and destroy. We know that they have the firepower to compete with any team. And that's right. I'm saying they have the firepower and respawn to compete with any team, whether it's FaZe, Optic, whoever. They can compete. They showed that this weekend, but they got to improve their search and destroy going forward to get from that fourth or third place ceiling to a grand final ceiling. But we can move on from London if you're ready to move on to the other EU boys, and that is the Ultra. Obviously, team not located in EU, but full EU team, EU coach. They finished fourth. Kind of maybe one of the weirder fourth place finishes we've seen, considering they went 0-8, 0-9 in hardpoint on the weekend. They didn't win a single hardpoint and they finished fourth. kind of wild. Uh, Overall, kind of a mixed bag. I feel like you can look at it two ways. You can look at it and say they didn't win a hard point. That's really bad. Like, I don't feel good about this team going forward. Or you could be like, hey, they didn't win a single hard point and they still finished fourth. Like, that makes me feel really good about them going forward. So I don't really know. I'm still kind of mixed on it. I feel like Cammy is not playing nearly as well as we've seen him the past couple of years. Really, he started this run of playing and staying at BO4 champs on kind of a pickup squad. They finished top 6, I believe, on a team that was expected to not do anything, maybe not make it out of pools. And from there on out, Cammy's been a top player going into MW and on. But he's struggled. He hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been MVP Cammy. Kleenex the same way. His inconsistencies have been showing through. Insight is also, once again, been good, but not what we saw last year. Bance has, I mean, arguably been their best player for a lot of the series, but I don't know. They just aren't the same ultra, but they still finish top 4. So I'm really like mixed on this team. I don't know how to feel. It's like they still found a way to finish top 4, so you gotta almost feel good about them because of how much they struggle and still are able to finish 4th. But at the same time, just because we know how good they can be doesn't mean they're gonna fulfill that. Like, these struggles could continue. I'm really questioning. I don't know how I feel about them.
Yeah, I mean they go ahead and 2-3-5 Thieves off the bat, and I was like, God damn it, like Thieves, come on. Um and then they lose their next match to London 3-1 on Saturday. Then they come back in 2-3-5 Boston on uh later on Saturday. And then they just, went up against, Faze powerhouse losers run Sunday for a 3-0 sweep. But yeah, it's like we've seen with Røkkr and with Subliners. It's hard when you're not winning hard points
Hmm.
because you got to rely on your obviously on your search and
You can't
the
screw
third
up.
the third game mode control. So um I don't know, it's just so weird. Like you said, I don't really know what to make of it. It feels like I'm looking at a piece of modern art, and it's like, what do you see here? And it's like everybody says something different. um so yeah, like a Rorschach ink blot or something. It's like, do you see a woman crying or do you see a baby or something? It's like, I don't know. Like, um, so yeah, I mean, I'll kind of look to what they do in Major Two, online qualifiers and stuff. But obviously, not winning a hard point on the weekend is a little bit concerning. But they show their clutch factor, I guess, in search, and obviously they they won all their controls. So or they won all the controls in the matches that they won. Um, so yeah, mixed bag. I don't know. Um, I don't think anybody yet is quite on the hot seat for them. I mean, maybe you could say, um, with Hixie on the bench, maybe Bance is feeling the breath on his shoulder or something. Um, he didn't really have the best weekend, but I think a lot of players on that team are they struggled this weekend. I wouldn't look to one land performance as, the reason to make a change. Maybe you see what you got in Major Two. But this is kind of the area for me where we start looking at, maybe you could make a case for, someone to at least be on the hot seat. So
Yeah, once you fall top 4 or lower, you can start to, not saying like this guy needs to be dropped or they for sure need to make a
right,
change,
yeah,
but you can start to
exactly.
be like, maybe in the future. This is where the 4th place ranges, where I think you can't say they need a change now, but you could say maybe looking forward, if this certain struggle continues, uh, I'm pretty much ready to move on from Ultra. But I will
Yeah,
say, going forward, I definitely don't think anybody's in the hot seat right now. I guess like maybe if they continue to struggle and they can't win a hard point, you've got to look at stuff. But to me, it's one of those teams. It's like, who do you drop? Because we know Kleenex's potential is one of the best subs in the game. We know Cammy can be like not only one of the best flexes, but the best player in the game. He's an MVP caliber player. We know what Vance brings to this team. He fries a lot. Oftentimes his stats aren't that bad, but we know the leadership he brings and insight. I mean, he changed this team. This was the first, I think I heard this is the first time they didn't finish top 3 since Insight came in before Major 2, and it was a 4th place finish. So, like, not like they really dropped out. This is their worst finish with Insight, and it's 4th. So, I mean, hard to say they need a roster change. I guess maybe if they continue to struggle or fall from here, you could potentially talk about it, but it's hard because who do you sub out? It seems like Bance is
yeah.
the answer, but I mean, there's a lot more than just kills on the map, and Bance brings a lot of that. So I'm not panicked on Ultra at all. I fully expect them to continue to improve from here. And let me tell you, a team with that talent's not going to continue to go 0-8 stretches in Hardpoint. If they do, I'd be shocked. Um, we can move on though to another team that I would say this is where we get to the potential of talking about teams that maybe underperformed. Some teams in this range coming up maybe overperformed, but this team I would say underperformed. LA Thieves, they finished 5th/6th, top 6. Obviously not like the worst placement, especially since they did fall to losers after their first match. They made a nice losers run. But I mean, we picked them to win the event. Aches, a lot of people picked them to win the event. I didn't maybe feel fully confident in that. I actually made a personal bracket and I picked Optic to win the event, so I got it right. In that one, but in our bracket, we picked Thieves. I don't know. This is another team. I'm kind of in the same boat as Ultra with them. I still feel like there's nobody that's really in the hot seat. Octane really struggled this weekend, which is weird to see because we never see that. Usually, stats wise, no matter what, since the role he plays is pretty friendly to your stats, we never see his suffer at all. But he really struggled. He said it himself. I kind of am going to chalk this one up to just a little bit of a slow start, doom them, and eventually they just ran out of gas in the losers bracket. They should have beaten Faze. They're up 2-0 and they kind of blew that one, but I don't know. I don't know how to feel about Thieves. I still feel like they have high potential to win some events, but disappointing to see them finish top 6 when we know that their potential is definitely around on Sunday at the very least.
Yeah, you know, Thieves, obviously the whole script was flipped once they lost their opening round match to Ultra.
Hmm.
Um, they went down and beat up on New York, and then they beat up on Minnesota as well. And then, the next match they played was, like late at night, uh, against, they
Faze.
yeah, oh yeah, the Phase match, Saturday night. And, so yeah, I mean, kind of unfortunate. I mean, I guess to our predictions, at least last week, they underperformed with top 6 from what we thought they might be winners. A lot of the other podcasts like pros were saying like, yeah, we think Phase. I think 3 of the 4 guys on reverse sweep were saying Phase, and then you had Sensor saying New York like a loon. But yeah, I really liked what I saw individually at points. I guess maybe save Octane because he just kind of had a down weekend. But I felt like Draza was like on another level at points.
Kenny was
Kenny was cooking. Envoy was playing really well as. But just kind of, and especially when they were up 2-0 on Phase, I was like, oh man, like Phase either are like crapping the bed, or Thieves are just like on another level. But they got reverse swept, kind of unfortunate way to go out for them. Um yeah, I would just, I think they're disappointed more than anything, in probably just their entire weekend, having to play from losers most of the weekend as well. I think they would probably want to go back and redo that ultra match to begin with. All they were able to win were maps 1 and 4. Um Yeah, I don't know. What do you any other thoughts on Thieves?
no. I mean, once again, the player that you would single out based on performance was Octane, but I'm not ready to do that.
Oh,
I'm
no,
not ready to
he's
say
I
he's on
I
the
think
hot
I
seat or
think this
anything.
whole team is pretty safe right now.
Well, once again,
Um,
it's just like Ultra. It's like, I guess since they finished top 6, you can make the argument that you need to look at it, but who are you going to drop? I mean, Kenny is, they've established this. It's almost like Scump at this point. They've established basically that Kenny is their franchise player. And they, like, Nadeshot said that. And he even revealed this text with Kenny in the offseason when Kenny's only potential team he was going to or thinking about going to was to team with Envoy and Scump on Optic this offseason before the whole Envy thing came through. That was his only other option. And he said he'd only leave Thieves for them. And Nadeshot was like, whoa, 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 we're paying you handsome over here. Like, you're not going anywhere. You're a franchise player. So, like, they made it clear Kenny's their franchise player. He's not going anywhere. I think
mhm,
Draza has pretty well established himself. The fans love him. They love his personality. He's a very good player. We know, obviously, what they did to bring in Envoy. Probably paid him a lot of money, and he's a very good player. And then Octane, kind of the first poster child for 100 Thieves. He was like their MVP in BO4 when they were winning events. Like, he's stated that he wants to play for them for the rest of his career. Like, it's like the same thing's Ultra. Like, if you could talk about making a roster change into their top 6, but where do you go? In my opinion, even more than Ultra, there's no reason to make a roster change of this team. Like, like we said, the other three were frying. Octane had an off weekend. I don't expect Octane to continue to have off weekends. I feel like he's going to come back. I still fully expect. I'll put my stamp on it right now. This team will at least be in a grand final once this year. I feel pretty confident in saying that. I have no worries about this team. So we can move on to our top 8 teams if you're ready.
Yeah.
All right, first one, Boston. Actually, no, not a top 8 team. They finished top 6. I was jumping the gun a little bit. Boston maybe technically overperformed their expectations. They finished top 6 at the event. Kind of a weird mixed bag. Obviously, their first match against Faze, they lose 3-0. Some of the maps are relatively close, kind of what we expected. Uh, then they play Florida in maybe one of the weirdest series we've ever seen. You and I were messaging about it, like, what just happened? I'm going to pull up the stats on that series. Uh, Maybe like the widest margin we have ever seen for a team getting outslayed and still winning the series. I still don't know what happened. And this might have been the most shocking series of the weekend, not because of the result. Like Boston beating Florida isn't shocking, but like you pull up the series, Big Wave dropped a 1.6. Skies had a 1.2. Dave Patty with a 1.05. Vivid with a 0.9 and his crazy engagements like usual. Then on the side of Boston, Methods with a 1.07. Everybody else with a 0.83 or lower. Like they got mega fried in the kills department, and somehow they win. Like it was very odd, especially because when they get fried like that, you'd think they had to have won 2-3-5. Well, no, they did win the 2 searches, but they won a hard point. Like, and they still got fried in the hard point that they won. Big Wake had a 2.8. He was 37-13 in that hard point, and the best KD on Boston was a 0.88. I mean, Cap dropped a 0.6 in that map, and they won it. Like they got fried on that hard point, and they still won. One of the weirdest series I've ever watched. Once again, goes to show that KD isn't everything. Like, you can get fried, but if you're playing the map correctly, you can accrue points at hardpoint. You can win, and you can win your search and destroys. But overall, besides that weird series, a decently impressive weekend for Boston. I feel like they proved to me that they have a very high ceiling. Like Nero at times. Nero was the guy, I'll be honest. I didn't know anything about Capsidal, so I didn't form an opinion on him when they picked him up. Nero was the guy I really doubted because he did not have very many good challengers placements with that LAG Academy team last year. I was honestly a skeptic of Nero, and I'll say he fully won me over this weekend. That kid has a lot of talent. He's a great search and destroy player, and he fried in some respawns like against some of the best players. Uh, I feel pretty good about this Boston team. I could see them definitely dropping below a top 6 placement at some events, but I feel like they have a pretty high ceiling. Like if they can get Nero and Cap to find a way to consistently slay, Methods is always going to be a steady main AR. He was their best player this weekend. And TJ, I mean, Iceman, we know he's the original Iceman. He had the nickname before Lamar. He makes plays in search and destroy, and he can also go on some streaks and respawn. And he's always making the right plays and respawn. So I feel like this team has a high ceiling. I was impressed with Boston.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of was thinking that they overperformed just based on where they finished.
Yeah, you can definitely make
But
the argument.
I was really, I mean, I guess my big takeaway is I was impressed with, I guess just the amount of matches they won and how far they made it. We were kind of thinking like, oh, maybe they're frying online preseason, yada yada yada. Um, they were obviously a really late team to form, so we were kind of down on them for that. And then I don't know, it seems like at least I've been kind of riding the wave. Like when they're up, I'm up on them. When they're down, I'm down on them. I need to kind of find my level with this team. Um, but right now, I think that they're a solid, at least based on what we know so far, they're a solid top 8 team for me. Um, and they showed a lot of land grit this weekend. Like you said, I was really impressed with Nero throughout the whole
Yeah.
series. Even in that last when they fell 3-2 to Ultra in that heartbreaker, Nero with the most engagements. He went 194 in the series. You really thought for a sec they were gonna get it done against Ultra, especially winning both hard points. Like we were saying, Ultra didn't even win a hard point, so
Yeah.
um, but and then obviously both searches kind of went down to the wire. Game 2 went round 11, and game 5 went round 10. But yeah, I mean, if they can just clean like a couple things up, like this team has a lot of potential. Like Cap and Nero have a lot of slaying. Like you said,
Mhm.
Methods is always going to be your solid AR, and Tej has that like you
He's
know
an X factor.
he really is, and obviously you can like say yeah we just rely on Tej for S&D, but like if Tej can show up and respawns more consistently, I'm just kind of looking through like if he could like you know go untraded a couple more times, like that
Yeah.
might be the difference. I
And
don't know.
you can say what you want about TJ and Respawn and stuff, and people like to criticize him for not caring sometimes, but like before Abezy and Shotzzy, they're like what TJ was originally. That's what TJ was when he first came onto the scene. I mean, he's the original search and destroy kid. Like he's the original one. Then he comes in the league in World War II on Rise, and he wins like three events or something. Uh, the thing I always think about when I think of TJ is his potential is he I don't know if you've ever seen this because this was really before you got into competitive comp, but he dropped like 62 kills in a World War II hardpoint for the L at champs. Like TJ makes big time plays in big time moments, and he's always been a great search and destroy player. He's the original search and destroy kid, really, and I mean, he literally like what Shotzzy and Abezy are known for now, first bloods and making plays. TJ is the originator of that. Like he is like the creator of that style of play, and he had at any point can be the best search and destroy player in not only in a match but in the league. At any point, he can take over and do that. So he is the X factor. But I like this Boston team going forward. I still don't know if they have event winning potential, but I do think they have potential to shock some teams, make this top 6 performance a regular, maybe sneak a top 4 and get into a Sunday or something. But uh, nobody's in the hot seat for me going forward. I fully expect them to hopefully build on this and, like we talked about, keep accruing CDL points and maybe be that team that we weren't expecting to finish top 8, but finish in that top 8 and make it to champs.
Yeah.
All right. Next team we get to talk about that finished top 8. Oh boy, I'm hyped. Uh, that's Paris. They finished top 8 at this event with a new roster with Tom Gravity in there. Uh, I'm hyped because, they were definitely coming into this event the number 12 team that we expected to just bottom out. And they take out a team who, I mean, they're a whole different issue. We can get to them. And that's Seattle Surge. Man, they definitely have their issues. But Paris, hey, Donnie Temp was playing at an unreal level. Gravity looked very good. John was making plays when it mattered. Round 11 Reaper, he was in that Seattle series with the 3-piece. Uh, and Paris showed some fight, even in that next series where they end up losing and getting eliminated. Who'd they play in that series? They got eliminated by Boston. Yeah, Boston.
Yes. Yes.
Uh, they looked pretty good in that series. They come out and they win that map 1, and I believe even uh, after they win that map 1, you messaged me and you're like, "Well, who is this team? Like, who is this Paris team?" And we were like, "Wait a minute, are they gonna do this? Like, they definitely could beat Boston at any point. Like, wouldn't be shocking." But we were like, "Wait a minute, they won map 1. Are they gonna do this?" Uh, I've told you a bunch of times on the podcast that Donnie Temp has that takeover potential. And I don't know if you even believed me because we just haven't seen Paris win or him really win over the last 2 years. But he showed it this weekend when I was talking about. He proved me right. Donnie Temp is the man. Uh, I'm still not ready to say like this team is a contender ready to win championships, but they're a team that I feel very confident about going forward. They got a true actual main AR. Like I love Fellow. I think Fellow's a great player. I think Fellow might end up getting dropped after this event because he had a couple struggle performances. I still think Fellow is very good, and it's almost an undeserved drop for him if he does, but he's not a main AR. He has never been a main AR. He's always been an entry sub. So they asked him to play a main AR role on this team. It didn't fit his style. I feel bad for him if he ends up getting dropped because of that. Gravity is an actual traditional main AR, and they made the roles make sense a little bit more on this team. And because of that, we see John maybe a little more unlocked. We see Temp fully unlocked. Fellow at certain points was unlocked. Uh, and this team, I was pretty impressed. I'm excited going forward to see if they can make this a consistent performance and maybe become a team that can fight for that 8th seed a lot more than we thought they would.
Yeah. I mean, where to begin with like the roster change coming into a LAN? I don't know, just like winless in their uh in the qualifier matches, 0-5. Like expectations were just rock bottom, and uh, like you said, for them to come out and beat Surge, we'll have a discussion on Surge later, but like impressive nonetheless in the game 5. winning maps 2, 4, 5.
Mhm.
So they showed that they can win. Search definitely. I think Search was going to be their great equalizer because obviously maybe the hard point reps aren't there, but everybody kind of knows how to you gear up and play Search to a certain degree. Like you call out strats, you can it's a little bit slower, but then to go out and take a hard point as well was really impressive for me. Um,
Mhm.
and I mean my confidence in them has never been higher this season. Maybe that's not saying a whole lot, um, but I think this team has a lot more upside than they did just a week or two ago. Um, it'll depend on if they make any more moves. I guess like we've heard uh,
Yeah.
other rumors here about like you said, maybe Fellow getting replaced.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But just taking away what we learned from this major, from this land, is that they're not dead, but they've definitely still got an uphill battle because of that poor quality
Mhm.
performance. So I definitely see the knee jerk reaction to make moves and stuff, but maybe you'd like to see them stick it out with this iteration with gravity only in the roster. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more confident than I was last week, and I think that's a positive.
I will say one thing before we can move on from Paris is I want to caution them from moving on from Fellow. I know, like if you look at the series versus Seattle, we know who the best player on the team was for Paris. Uh, AD wise, technically it was Gravity, but I think everybody can agree that Temp was the best player on their team
Hmm.
in that series. John was at a point 0.9, and he made MVP plays. Like we said, he basically almost aced that round 11. Was absurd. Fellow really struggled with a 0.79, but he had his moments. In I believe what was it in the map 4? I think he kind of pieced. Yeah, he had a 1.26, 129 and 23 in the map 4. Had a really big map in that Berlin hardpoint win. And then you move on to the next series against Boston where they lose 3-1. John was the best player on the team in that series with a 1.05. Temp was also right up there. You can make the argument it was him. Gravity at a point 0.9, but once again, Fellow with a 0.73. He really struggled. I don't know. I just would still caution them because, I mean, hey, pump the brakes a little bit. You won your first series as a team. I don't know if you're ready to just make a roster change after you do that, but we know what do we always talk about when it comes to Fellow? Uh, Motormouth. That's his nickname. His comms are insane. He never stops comming. He talks so fast. People always say how good his comms are, and that could be a big reason as to why this team won this weekend. We don't know. Like, he could have been a big glue guy that was really, really stepping up in the comms department because that's been one thing throughout John's whole career. Like back when he was on Envy, he was just a walking 1.3, but he never calmed because he was just gunning people. Like that famous listening of Envy making the crazy comeback on E United. John maybe says like 2 words and he just says dead, dead, dead. Every time they call somebody out, he just fries them. Like John is not known for his comms at all. And we know Temp is, so in the department, but Fellow's one of the best communicators in the league. So I'd caution them to move on from Fellow, but I guess based on stats, I can see how you'd maybe think he dropped 2.7s this weekend in both series. So I guess I can see the argument stats wise, but I don't know if I'm ready to just move on from him after seeing them win a match. I'd like to see them stick it out. Outlook for them going forward. You hope to see them consistently around this top 8 because for them you can't just be like, hey, let's see them make a Sunday or something. Like they were number 12, so hopefully they can make this finishing top 8 a standard and maybe propel that forward. Uh, you ready to move on to your boys though?
Hmm.
All right, Røkkr. They for a second there, I thought we were maybe in for another like potential Røkkr run. Uh, they 3-0'd LAG in their first match in the losers bracket. And I was like, wait a minute here. Attach is looking like MVP Attach, AW Attach. He was cooking. And I was like, hey, maybe Minnesota are going to clutch up and just win every search and destroy and find a way to sneak out a respawn and be that 2-3-5 team. Um, Not the case. They obviously lose in their next match, but I don't know. I guess I just feel like Minnesota, I still feel okay about this team in some ways because I don't know, they finished top 8, but this whole like split for them, this whole stage 1 just seems like they just had a brutal schedule, right? Or am I just
Yeah.
am I wrong on that? They had a brutal schedule, which is no excuse. If you're a top team, you've got to beat those teams. But at the same time, they do beat Optic. Obviously, it was in around 11 earlier in the stage before Optic had a win. I just don't know how to feel. Like people are keep talking about how they should switch Priesta to the sub because it makes more sense and attaches really good with the AR. And then you see Brian Saint doing a deep dive on Twitter as to why this doesn't work. They've tried it multiple times and it doesn't work for the team. They do a lot worse when that's the case. And as much as I think that switch could help them, let's be honest, Brian Saint has a lot more knowledge on the team than I do. So I believe his opinion when he says that they just don't seem to do as well when that switch happens, especially in scrims. They struggle a lot more. So I just don't know because this is another team that it's like you've got to start talking about roster changes. You have to. When you struggle this bad in a stage, the conversation has to at least come up about how you could upgrade. You can't finish top 8 starting losers and just be like, yeah, we're good. But it's another team that it's like Standy's their franchise player. There's no way they're dropping him. Major Maniac's arguably their best player this year. It's hard to drop him. And typically main AR swaps don't usually change a team that much. And then it's attached. He was the best player this weekend, no doubt. You can't really drop him. And it's like, do we really want to drop Priesta? Like that's what everybody's talking about is him, but Priesta's an insane player. Like at his best, we know he's one of the best flexes in the league. He's up there with your Cellium, your Cammy, your Gunless. Uh, Illy has got to be in that conversation now. Like people might think that sounds crazy, but I mean, the dude at times has been the best player on his team, has hard carried his team. It's just, it's a weird situation. I don't know. You're the Minnesota guy, so let's let you have at it.
Yeah, I mean, this team, I mean, like you said, they really did have a tough go of it in the qualifiers. I don't think you can fault them for that. I mean, maybe this team has to, like, maybe we have to tamp our expectations based on what they were coming off of in at the end of Cold War with, that insane win in Major 5 and then a decent champs showing. But this is a new title. I don't agree with dropping anybody at this point.
Yeah,
Um,
it's so weird, right?
yeah, I mean, because like you said, we know what Priesta can be at his best, and we've seen glimpses of it. But it feels like he hasn't really been that superstar since his time on 100 Thieves and BO4.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think that's a really valid point because on that MW Faze squad, he was playing second fiddle to everyone else.
Yeah.
Him and Major Maniac were like, just like the back markers. They were just kind of like the steady eddies. And last year he was kind of up and down as well. People were, I think people even last year were saying, maybe Priesta would be the next one to go. When they were kind of having
Hmm.
the accuracy and Major Maniac swaps and stuff, it's like, well, maybe Priesta needs a role change. Maybe this XYZ needs to happen. Um, but yeah, I mean, based on what we saw this weekend, Attach, found another form. I mean, he was even in that 3-1 loss to Thieves, he put up a 1.23 KD with
Yeah, he was
over
cooking.
11,000 damage. Um, I just think maybe this team will be fighting more for that top 8 spot unless I feel like we as in me and the rest of the fan base maybe um we're expecting Standy to really be that like 1.2, KD player, like just like a takeover potential. Really to be
Hmm.
up there with like the Shotsies and stuff. And I feel like he's been a little bit slower to start. Um,
He's definitely been lower than what we had expected him to be.
right,
Maybe an MVP candidate coming into this
especially
year.
yeah. I think I even had him in my I think I had him as like an MVP candidate, if not predicting him to be like the regular season or champs MVP or something like that. But yeah, I think that we'll see what happens with them going forward, maybe with having quote unquote easier schedules, um, or easier qualifier matches. Maybe they can, slot into winners and really have that buffer of being able to lose a match if it comes to be that. But the rest of these teams look really good, and I think that Røkkr, can't fault their teamwork. This team is, proven that they're able to hang around. They're never going to go quietly. Um, and Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody's on the hot seat really.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just my bias, but I think it would be really foolish to make a move based on, a tough qualifier series and, running up against a really good LA Thieves and losers. Because obviously they started in losers, so they got to dispatch of Guerrillas and then ran into the other LA team and got kind of bodied.
Yeah. I'll say my thoughts on them going forward. I would agree. Nobody's really on the hot seat. I would say Priesta's seat is heating up a little bit by default.
Sure.
Uh, it's starting to get a little warmer, and I guess I'll say I don't think they should make a roster change either right now, but I think they should maybe start to think in the back of their mind what they'd want to do, and then see how stage two goes. Like if they have a similar performance in stage two, I think you almost are forced to make a roster change. And once again, I gotta say it's probably going to be Priesta because you don't drop attach. I mean, you just don't. The guy always keeps you in contention. He always is going to be an icy player. He's one of the most popular players in the league. He's great for branding. I'm sorry, but he's the. I guess I'll go ahead and say it. I think he's more undroppable than Standy. Uh, I think he is the untouchable player in this team. I think worst comes to worst, if I had to pick one, I'm picking attach to continue going forward with. That might be a crazy hot take for some people, but uh, especially based on Standy's performance. I mean, he had one good half a year. I still think Standy's a fantastic player, and I wouldn't drop him either. But Attach is the untouchable guy in the team to me. And then I think Standy, for their eyes, is at least for sure untouchable for now. And like I said, Major Maniac's been the best player, but we can move on from them. I will just say one thing you mentioned. Uh, Priesta has maybe been struggling since he had that crazy year in BO4. What was Priesta's role in that BO4 team? He was the entry sub. I mean, his sub duo on that team was Enable, and he was the entry sub on that team. So, an interesting thing to note. I mean, they say they really struggle when he runs that role, but we know how fast paced of a player Priesta is and how slow attach can be for a sub. So, I don't know. It seems like on paper that role swap would be beneficial to the team and beneficial to both players, but I guess they're saying it's not the case. So maybe we'll see them do it because they'll say, screw it, we got to try something. But we can move on to our next team that we have. We're now down to the four teams that were eliminated without winning a match. Uh, Three of them started, no, two of them actually started in winners, and then two were in losers. So these are obviously all the teams that we have to talk about somebody being on the hot seat or potential roster change because whether we believe they should make a change or not, they finished without winning a map, or not winning a map, but winning a match. So we got to talk about it. First team, Surge. What a crazy fall down, huh? Like after a
Yeah,
couple weeks in the kickoff classic, we were talking, are they the top team in the game? Are they going to win some events? Are they going to win Major One? And they didn't even win a match, and they lost to Paris. I mean, losing to Optic is one thing. They're a very good team. Like you'd expect them maybe to lose to them, but losing to Paris, who hadn't won a match coming into that series. Weird. And you know what? I'll go ahead and say it. Mac was their best player this weekend by far. That guy has really impressed me. And like KD wise, nobody had like a terrible event. It's just I don't know. They're in that ultra boat of really weird and hard to figure out, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I think even back after like week 1 or 2, I was saying that they were better than Faze. So I'm really looking dumb. When we were doing our power rankings, I,
Yeah, I
I
was
think,
trying to caution you, but you were full on.
well, I mean, they look so good in the online
Yeah.
qualies, and they come here and um, Optic Texas, dispose of them in winners round one, and then the big shock for me was them losing to Paris. I thought that was like, I don't know, laughable. I don't know if that's the right word, but based on what they were coming from and stuff, and then um, I don't know, it was just really weird because even in that Paris series, the only person that went negative was accuracy, and that was only by 4 kills or 4
Yeah.
deaths, and he still put up a fair amount of damage too. So I don't really know what to make of it. I mean, they just looked flat, I guess. Like they didn't have that like donk mode takeover from Sib and Pred that we were used to seeing. Like you said, Mac was probably quietly their best player, but probably didn't get a lot of screen time and
He
stuff.
was
So
100% the best player.
yeah,
I would say 100%.
so it was just a really mixed, weird. They got like I don't know. I
I
don't know
mean,
what to make of it.
it is it notable that they picked up a sub?
Yeah, they
Uh,
they picked up Classic, right?
and what role does he play? He plays everything but a main AR. He can be a flex or a sub. So that would
Yeah,
technically mean that all three players not named accuracy would be on the hot seat, unless they were going to move Sib to main AR and
yeah,
put classic
and
in, I guess.
yeah, and we were talking about like, or I guess a lot of the big, um, narratives around this team were like, what if the three, young guys just like oust accuracy or something like a coup d'état and accuracy's gone or something.
Hmm.
So who knows what's gonna happen? I don't. It was kind of weird to see Surge like make a signing mid major
Yeah,
after
that
they
was a
got
weird time to
bounced,
announce it.
and so who knows what's gonna happen? Like we said, we're gonna have a news and predictions breakdown, so maybe we'll have more announced during the week as far as like any roster moves. But
Yeah.
I don't. I would say definitely. Uh, I don't know. I would say maybe accuracy is on the hot seat. Weirdly, um,
Yeah, but
but
I don't know. Is that
it's
because you
tough.
think that he's going to get outed by the three young
No,
players, or
no.
because you believe he should be in the hot seat?
It's just the numbers aren't there for him, and
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, without him, they're for sure 1-4 at qualifiers.
Oh yeah, for sure. So that just makes me think that this team is gonna stay as is and really just try and figure out what's going on. Um, I guess the only other player you could say is maybe Sib. If
Yeah.
if there are internal struggles going on.
Yeah,
Um,
they're a team that, based on individual skill, you really like. It has to, if one player other than accuracy is to be dropped, and I'll go ahead and say this: I think accuracy should be the safest player on the team, but he isn't. In my personal opinion, I think he should be the safest, but I think he's probably the most at risk. So, like, I don't want to make it sound like I think accuracy should be benched, because in my personal opinion, actually, I take that back. He's second safest. I think Max should be the safest right now, and then I think accuracy should be. But I think he should have a 0% chance to be dropped right now. But I think he probably has the highest based on what the team is looking at right now. I, I want to go ahead and say that it's another team that I want to see them play another couple weeks. I think they maybe are a young team that started snowballing, and they just need like a little bit of a reset this week. Chill out, talk about what went wrong, like go through it. Uh, I, I mean, everybody knows, Kyle. This podcast. All the listeners, they know I'm a big Classic fan. I think he probably should have been in the league this year again, because every team he's on, I think, like, he had a stretch from like what was it, AW through Modern Warfare, where he won an event every single year. He was like one of the only players to do that, along with like Slacked and the Optic Dynasty players. Like one of the only players to win an event every year, like kind of like Attach. He always gets his slice of the pie. He always wins an event. The streak ended in Cold War. Like, that's a crazy run, like 6 or 7 titles in a row while winning an event or something like that.
mhm.
I have a lot of faith in him, but at the same time, like, when you look at this roster, it's hard to believe they're going to make a roster change without trying to fix things a little bit, because accuracy is the veteran. We know how much he's probably helped develop these players behind the scenes that we don't even know about. Uh, like I said, I think Mac's been their best player. You can't drop him. And then we've seen the flashes from Sib and Pred, and you got to believe that Seattle is looking big picture, saying we think Sib and Pred are potentially our duo of the future. Like, I don't know, you can agree or disagree with that, but I would think that's how the Seattle management is looking. Like, this is our duo of the future. We know how much potential these guys have. So I think they're going to ride it out for at least another stage. I will say accuracy is probably the guy in the hot seat. I think undeservedly so, but probably what it is.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Yeah, I would be hard pressed to believe that Sib or Pred are,
I think
really
they're
at
the
risk.
two
Just
least likely to get dropped, but
yeah,
they maybe should be the two most likely based on
right.
just this year alone. But with how the Call of Duty League is now, it's not like the CWL. You can't just drop somebody that has potential, because you've got to like look going forward. You're a franchise now. You're not just maybe an org that's in it for 1 year. You've got to look going forward. Like, you can't just like drop a young player who's not performing like you could in CWL days, because you may be out of the CWL the next year. Like, now you're a franchise team. You're gonna guarantee to be in there next year unless you sell the spot or something. So I don't know. I just want to see Surge play a little more before I panic on them, but I'm definitely worried. All right. Ready to talk about the other C-based team, Florida?
Oh my gosh, that's such a weird team.
We kind of talked about them a little bit with the whole Boston thing, but like, what? Like, I still don't know what to make of it. We talked about their crazy KDs they put up. Big Wake had a 1.6 and lost. Probably one of the highest KDs ever to lose a series like that, especially with how well his teammates played stats wise. I mean, what do you make of this team? Like, Dave Patty continues to play pretty well. I mean, guys played pretty well. Like everybody in the team played pretty well. I mean, Vivid had a point 0.9, but once again, a point 0.9 for Vivid is extremely good because of what he plays at an Abezy pace. Like we know what he does, but they lose. They didn't win a match this weekend. They lose the only match they played against Boston in a 3-2. Just what do you make about this team? Is anybody on the hot seat? Yes, in my opinion, uh, every player is on the hot seat because I can't particularly pick out a guy I think deserves to be dropped. But at the same time, something has to change because they have 3 main ARs and 1 sub player who plays at a blistering pace, and nobody else even comes close to matching him. So they got to make a roster change, in my opinion. Apparently, Yeez is really struggling in challengers this year, so I don't know that he's the answer like everybody thought he was. But this team is just weird. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what we're looking at with Florida. Like we mentioned earlier, I was DMing you about the match, and I was like, man, this is just so confusing because they're putting up numbers, but they're just falling so short.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, I'm not exactly sure what the issue is. Because even when we were doing our, top position breakdowns, it's like all of their players were falling into the statistical categories where they probably should be in the consideration, but it's like they're just not getting results. And it might be that they're in a hard place with Yeez maybe kind of struggling now. He seemed to be the logical uh, replacement, but maybe they're looking to ride it out a little bit more now.
Yeah.
It might be, restructuring how they approach playing the entire game. Like, do we need role swaps? Do we need to just you know, sacrifice maybe 1 or 2 players, going bananas with the stats to, really translate that into wins? Because it's not looking too good for them right now. Like, I was expecting them to maybe win a match or two in losers, and I think I swayed you in the vote, or in the deliberations last week into
Yeah, I wanted
making
to pick Boston.
Yeah, I know you were saying like, "Damn you! I wish we would have stuck with
Yeah, I
Boston."
picked Boston on my personal to
Yeah,
win 2 and losers.
yeah, but I was just so convinced that Florida was gonna put something together and at least win one match. Um, but yeah, I don't. I like you said, I can't put my finger on who's exactly on the hot seat. I think everyone should be, you know, looking at themselves and being like, man, we really gotta step it up. Figure out what's going on. Uh, there's I heard somewhere that they're thinking, or somebody was proposing, trading skies to New York uh for Crim or something, like a one for
Yeah,
one trade or something like that's
yeah.
just I don't I so I mean who knows what to make of it, and like they're not getting the results, they're not translating their stats into wins. Um so I think for me right now this is a team that falls outside of the top 8 easily for me. Like they're
Yeah,
going to
you
be
know who would maybe look good in this team right now? You know what
I
I'm gonna say.
anybody.
Maybe the guy that they dropped right before the season, Colt Havoc, the
Colt,
best sub in challengers.
Colt Havoc, man, I don't think he'd. I mean, sure, it's a CDL spot, but I mean, that'd be a massive like ego deflation to go back there.
But he's the best sub
Yeah,
in challengers right
exactly.
now, and they need a sub. You know, the weird thing is, it's another team that like stats wise, there wasn't a key underperformer, but to me, like as weird as it sounds, I feel like the odd guy out uh, is Dave Patty, right? It's weird though because he's been playing really well, but To me, it feels like kind of like the attached thing. Skies seems to be their franchise player, and when you're talking CDL, not CW anymore, franchise players matter. Uh, a guy who's a face of a franchise, like I feel like Florida is going to keep Skies around until they can't justify it anymore. And Skies has been playing pretty well. Vivid, we know what he brings to the team. You can't drop this. Like I've heard people talking about like he's the clear guy out, but like you can't drop the only sub you have on your roster.
Exactly.
Like so, Vivid's pretty safe because of that, and I believe Vivid should be safe because the role he plays, dropping a point 0.9 is good because of how he makes it hard on himself to drop a good KD with how blistering fast he plays. Uh, and I don't know. I feel like Skies is safe because of the whole franchise player thing. I mean, you can have that argument whether you believe in that or not. And then Big Wake with how much he fried this weekend, how well he played, I feel like he's going to at least give them time. And it seems like Florida wants to make Big Wake their franchise player as well because they like refuse to get rid of that guy when everybody wants them to in the offseason and stuff. They want to break up that Skies Big Wake duo. So it almost feels like Dave Patey is kind of left out, maybe going to sub him out for a submachine gun player, let Skies move to the full-time AR, put Big Wake on the flex. Uh, I guess that's what I think will probably happen. What do I actually think will happen? I think Florida will probably keep this roster for at least another couple weeks and try it out because they've showed potential. But I feel like you have to say every single player is on the hot seat besides maybe Vivid because he's the only sub on the roster. Uh, but like, I don't know. It's just weird. You can't pinpoint between Sky's Big Wake and Dave Patey in terms of stats. None of them are underperforming, so you can't really pinpoint one. But I feel like all three seats have got to be heating up because they've got to be talking roster changes.
Yeah, I mean, any self-respecting team would, in my eyes, would be looking at, uh, making things, shaking things up. Like you said, I think Vivid is probably safe, but maybe not. Like at
Well,
least
you
from
you would think
public
logically
calls.
he is, but based on the
Yeah,
way they construct their roster, maybe not. Maybe they're just going to bring in like General since he's been hot, and they're just going to run 4 main ARs. I don't know what the heck's going on with them.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, exactly. So I don't know.
all
I,
right.
I I don't need to spend any more time on Florida if you don't want to.
No, we've got, in my opinion, maybe one of the most shocking results from the weekend coming up now. And that's LAG. I mean, I wasn't expecting them to make like some crazy run, but I feel like they were kind of the sexy pick in the first round to pull off an upset. I feel like of the four underdogs in the first round, Boston, Seattle, LAG, and Toronto, the four lower seeds, I feel like the hot pick was LAG. Maybe people were saying Toronto, but I feel like overall LAG was the team that people were saying, London Royal Ravens are inexperienced. LAG's super experienced. They could pull off that upset, make a run. Uh, Obviously, that doesn't happen. They lose in the first round to Ravens, get handled pretty easily, and then they go down and lose to Minnesota in a 3-0 fashion. Weird performance from them. Slasher with maybe the worst tournament I've ever seen him play on LAN, worst couple matches. I don't know. This team showed a lot of promise in qualifying matches, and then they just bottom out of the tournament. It almost looked like in that losers bracket match they had already given up. Like they just weren't trying. Now, granted, that was just like Slasher was just getting mega tucked, which I don't think will continue to happen. That's I've never seen. I've never actually like felt like Slasher has like ever costed his team in a series because he's always putting up numbers. Like as a main AR, he always puts up numbers, but he was bad this weekend, and he knows that he's going to improve. I have no doubt about that, but. Is it odd that I still feel kinda confident in this LAG team? Feel like they kinda laid a dud, but I still think they're gonna figure things out. Is that crazy? Am I crazy?
No, I'm definitely in the same boat as you. I still want to ride LAG for as long as I can. I think this team is too too good, and we saw too much promise in their qualifier matches to really, uh, you know, sell off all of our shares after this land performance. And I'm just gonna call that 3-0 to Røkkr like a total just like fluke. Even though you show up, you play the team you're supposed to play, and you accept the result you're given, um, or the result you work for. But you know that uh, that London opener, like it was the first match of the major, and they London wins the opening hard point. It was a close hard point. The Tuscan hard point. I guess it looks like Guerrillas slightly outslayed them by maybe a couple kills, but
Mhm.
and then then they go off and win maps 2 and 3, and then they get 100-point clubbed on Berlin and map 4, and then lose a 6-3 surge. So, man, this team is such a love-hate thing. Like, I think I was saying a week or two ago, like, um, they're just not getting results yet, and they're not translating their gameplay. Like, we've seen Gunless go off, we've seen Hook and Asim go off, and obviously we know Slasher is, aside from, this major, you know, gonna be pretty reliable in the main AR. Like, this team just makes too much sense. But so, like you said, I don't think this team has anybody on the or this team shouldn't have anybody on the hot seat. They do have Spart on the bench. So, take that for what it's worth. I think they should give this another entire qualifier and LAN to really, flesh out what they're working with here. But yeah, I still have a lot of confidence in this team, but they're gonna have to prove it because you know, they kind of lucked into winners based on tiebreaker stuff. Um, they were one of those 3-2 teams that maybe could have been down if different tiebreakers didn't go their way. Um, but yeah, I think this team will improve in stage 2 for the qualifiers and the major and stuff. So I think they should still stick with what they got.
Yeah, I fully agree. Sounds crazy because we've been unsure about who to make roster changes with, but a lot of these bottom four, normally it's like bottom four, you got to make a roster change. But Surge, we saw how good they could look. They have a lot of young superstars, hard to make a change. Florida, it's like you've got three different players to choose from. LAG, we know how much their roster makes sense on paper, and we'll get to the last team. Even them, they have two of the goats, two of the top five players of all time. So it's hard to just like say, hey, drop one of those guys. Like these bottom four teams, we know they maybe need a change, but I would say of the bottom four, this is a team I think is most safe in the roster and doesn't need a change of the bottom four. Because, like you said, it's a little weird, and I'm going to reference one of the other GOATs, Hecz, and what he said about this team, because I fully agree. If you had to pick one guy who so far has been the superstar of this team, who would you say it is through this season only?
I would say probably Gunless.
You think? I would say it's Gunless or Asim for sure.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean,
Slasher's really
Asim's
struggled.
Asim's had some really good maps,
Like I referenced
really
that
good
London
series.
series in the
Yeah.
qualifiers when Asim cooked London
Oh yeah.
and handed them their only loss. And that's what Aches was kind of saying. Like Asim has been their superstar, but if you look on paper, like we know Asim has the talent to be a superstar, but what has been his role since he came into the scene in BO4? He's been an
The
entry sub
entry.
OBJ,
Yeah.
right? Like that's what his job has always been. Not saying he can't be the superstar, but like when you look at this team, we know Hook has always his whole career been a roaming slayer. Gunless has been a slaying flex. Slasher's just been your mainstay, steady AR that's going to drop his 1.2 every series and move on. Like Asim on this team is designed to be the entry, dirty work OBJ player that he for sure can make his plays, but right now he's the superstar. He's been arguably the best player on the team, and not saying he can't do that, but that shouldn't be his role. Like you've got a team with Gunless, who many will view as one of the most talented flexes, if not the most talented flex of all time, before Cellium came around, and then Hook, who at one point, I mean, people might say AW Hook is the best, most talented player they've ever seen. And at times we've seen him be the best player in the game. We know how much of a slaying upside he has. Asim should not be the superstar. And in my opinion, that's what's the issue with this team right now. Like Asim should be your dirty work guy, like going in first, making plays as an entry guy, kind of like your Abezy. He's the poster child of an entry guy, and Asim plays at that blistering pace like Vivid and Abezy do. And then it should be a guy like Hook following him up, getting the two pieces, being the slaying guy along with Gunless. Those two should be your slayers. Well, Slasher does everything a main AR does, and then Asim's your dirty work guy. The roles in this team are just not correct right now. It's just odd how Asim has been the superstar. I feel like that's what needs to change for them. They need to find a way to unlock Hook and Gunless and let them be takeover players. Because if they're unlocked and those three are taking over, it'll just be like Slasher sitting behind them, gunning over, kind of like he had with Apathy and John when they were unlocked in Slasher's best team he's ever been a part of. So I don't know, just very odd with this team, but I'm ready to move on to our final team if you are.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah, I guess maybe the most shocking of the bottom 4 for this tournament was LAG, but, like, if you go preseason and you would've told me that, New York was gonna finish, top 12 in that bottom 4 first teams out, in the 9 through 12, if they were to finish there, you probably would've been absolutely like, "Yeah, you're on something. That's not gonna happen. They're not gonna, go to the first major and not win a series." I think you'd even be shocked probably before the season started, before you see any matches, you'd have been shocked if New York started in losers in the first event, right? Like, you'd been shocked. Uh, I don't even know what to make of this team. Clayster has really, really struggled this year, which is odd to think about because, like, we know how good of a player uh, Clayster is. Krim is actually, I mean, honestly, Krim has played pretty well. Hydra's been MVP level, but he just has had no help. And Royalty, I don't know, he played pretty poorly uh, in this match this weekend, but I feel like he's been thrown into a pretty poor situation. So I'm kind of giving him a little bit of a pass, but not fully. I mean, obviously, I think all 3 players in this team by default have to be on the hot seat. Besides, obviously, Hydra, he's not on the hot seat at all. He's maybe the safest player in the league right now with how well he's played and how poor his teammates have played. My personal opinion, I think Krim should be safe because he's easily been the second best player on this team. I think Royalty is going to be dropped most likely because it's just he just was thrown into a tough situation, and I feel like they need another superstar Slayer to go along with Hydra. And I feel like Clayster's probably on the hot seat because people are starting to question him and if he can play with Krim anymore. What do I think happens? I think Royalty is dropped, and I think they replace him with a sub, and they move forward with Clay and Krim and try it out for maybe one more stage. Crazy to think though that we're talking about this because Clay and Krim coming into this year had the most successful track record in terms of average placement for a duo of all time. So crazy to think about. I don't know. I didn't expect them to do anything at this land, but I kind of still in the back of my mind held out that little hope that, it's Clay and Krim. They'll find a way to win a match. Uh, Clearly they didn't do that. They got cooked. Envoy, Kenny, and Draza just tuck them in this series. Uh, Octane struggled again. That's kind of crazy to see, but we're not talking about them. We're talking about Subliners. Clay dropped to 0.7. Royalty dropped to 0.7. Hydra was trying to drag them as best he could. I don't know. I mean, Hydra's still an MVP candidate, but the rest of this team, yikes.
Yeah, this really comes down. I mean, we could probably do a whole, what to do with New York subliners. I'm really looking forward to listening to all the podcasts this week, discuss what's going to happen with this team. Because I think we're both in agreement that this team, as is, will probably not stick around even until next weekend. I think this team has, got changes incoming. The two things I see possibly happening are that, they give Neptune another shot and just kind of like roll the dice because it can't get much worse um, than what happened in the entirety of stage one. Um, maybe another landing spot for our guy Havoc for another SMG, and then they just continue with uh, Clay and Krim running AR and Flex. Um, but yeah, I don't know, maybe that whole narrative of can Clay and Krim play on a 4v4 team together? That's a discussion for a different day. I'm not, personally well versed enough in, breaking down VOD and stuff to really determine that, but the questions are abounding right now. I'm just really I'm is this weird that this is like the most excited or the thing I'm most excited for this coming week is like what's going to happen with New York because like obviously you have two of the all-time goats in Clay and Krim and like they're really in a bad way right now.
Yeah.
Like you had Krim tweeting that his mental has never been worse. You had Clay saying that he's muting his Twitter mentions or something. So
Yeah. Which,
um
I
they're
mean,
I mean obviously they're kind of they've been struggling since the comp season kicked off, so you can't blame them. And I'm far be it from me to criticize people for their you know disclosing stuff about their mental health and stuff or how they're feeling, but yeah, I mean but it seems like they're not ready to just quit mid-season and hang it up. Like Clay was like, you're not going to see me go out this way. I'm going to be back. Things are going to get better. So uh, I don't know, but they definitely need somebody to run along with Hydra. And we saw Neptune, like the roles with Neptune. Like Neptune didn't want to be the hill bitch or something. Like that was the
Mm,
rumor. Like he didn't want to have like two plus minutes in the hard points, and
yeah,
he kind of wanted to be his own player. So maybe that's not going to work. If they were thinking about bringing him back, Royalty was just royally screwed in this situation. Getting put into you know a team in total shambles, disarray. Um, but we know that Clay, Krim, and Hydra can be so good when they have
yeah,
their moments, and I think I've been preaching that since we've seen them start struggling. I'm like, man, this team is just like one one vibe away from really just like getting back into
yeah.
that top four form and cooking like we know that they can. So I don't point being, I don't know what's going to happen with this team, but I think that they really got to make like a final move. Like it can't be another like placeholder Royalty move. um so those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I fully agree with everything. I also want to give a shout out to Krim because Krim is always trolly and never actually shows his real emotions. So the fact that he kind of finally admitted that he's struggling and it's this struggle of this year so far for the team has taken a toll on him. Shout out to Krim. I obviously posted a little message to him on Twitter because it's not an easy thing to admit, especially for a guy like him that doesn't ever talk about stuff like that. So shout out to Krim because I can imagine as a competitor and somebody with as much success as him and how competitive he is, it's got to be absolutely killing him that he's trying to do everything he can to fix this. Because he is. He's trying to do everything he can to fix his team right now, and just nothing is working. They went the entire stage without winning a hard point. And for a guy like Krim, if you know anything about him, he's always been a fryer. He's never drops anything below a 1 KD, and he's always been a good respawn guy. His teams have always won through respawn, and they can't win a respawn right now. So shout out to Krim. I guess with this team going forward, it's you just really hope that this doesn't turn into like they struggle this next stage and then Clay announces his retirement or Krim does or something because like you said, there is no doubt, along with Krim, obviously part of the Optic Dynasty. The Optic Dynasty and Clayster are widely viewed as the top 5 COD players of all time right now. And if these two were both to be like, you know what, screw this, is taking too much toll on my mental health and I'm done, I want to retire. Nobody, I don't even care if you hate Clay and Krim. Nobody wants to see them go out like this. They're two of the all-time legends. Like I don't want to see them go out because they just can't win a map, so they just decide that it's the stress isn't worth it and they retire. Like I don't care how much you hate them. Nobody wants to see two of the all-time greats. And not even two of the all-time greats. I mean, Krim is like basically the undisputed GOAT right now. Like you don't want to see him go out like this. So hope they're able to turn it around. I'd like to see them at least give the trio of Krim, Clay, and Hydra one more shot. It's just they've got to pick up an absolute difference maker in the sub spot. And I just don't know. I don't know enough about challengers to know who's out there. You feel like the best player right now is Colt Havoc, but I don't know if they're going to pick him up because of that bias against vets. But maybe he'd be an answer. I don't know. But I'm ready to kind of move it on and wrap it up because we're gonna have a whole news podcast and predictions pod coming out later this week. But this was about an hour and a half long of reaction, so we don't want to do a 3 hour long podcast like we said. You got anything else? I have a kind of a stat of the week to actually read off before we wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I felt like we hit on a bunch of our big picture takeaways for each team. I don't know. I mean, maybe one last wrapping thought is like, if I was to ask you right now, who you think is gonna, you know, front the field at LAN Major 2 in Minnesota, you're gonna be in attendance, I
Oh
know.
yeah, my tickets
Um,
and places to stay are all booked.
yeah, so I mean, maybe maybe asking your personal bias, but who do you want to see on that main stage Sunday in the grand final? It's
Last
easy to say Faze and Optic again because we were really treated to a great
oh yeah,
finals match. But
the best five two I've
what are
ever
you
seen.
thinking?
um, I don't know. Last time I was at that Minnesota kickoff, the Minnesota natives came out. I mean, I actually talked to like an older gentleman that was there, and he said, I don't play Call of Duty. I never really been into video games, but I heard that there was just this esports event going on in Minnesota, and we had a home team, so I wanted to come check it out. So that was really cool. Just the guy's like a local Minnesota guy, and he's like, I love sports, and my kid plays some video games, so I came here with him to just check this out, and he loved it. He's like, I'm gonna be a fan of this team going forward because he's like a Vikings, Twins, Timberwolves guy, and he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna follow this team because they're a Minnesota team. So that was cool. The Minnesota fans show out, so I think it'd be kind of fun to see them in the finals of their own major. You'd be hyped, but I'm gonna be honest. When you said that, first thing that came to mind, I want to see Thieves Optic. That's what I want to see. I want to see the Nate shot versus Hecz. That I think that'd be another heavyweight battle. I still think it's probably right now. If I'm betting, I think the most likely thing to happen is a repeat of this week's final, Optic Faze. But I kind of want to see Thieves Optic. I feel like finals in the venue, from being in the venue when Optic was playing in winners finals at one point, and then for being there for that first matchup of Crim versus Scump after they broke up in Minnesota. I don't know. Something's just different in the venue. The energy is different when Optic's in a final. So I'd like to see them in it again and see if they can repeat. That's always kind of something I want to do. I always want to see the team that wins be in the final next time because the whole story of repeating and talking about dynasty is always fun. So that's who I want to see. But also wouldn't mind seeing Minnesota at their home event because their fans went pretty crazy last time I was there.
Yeah, they definitely got a lot of a good, grassroots support. Like, Minnesota fans are very passionate about their teams. But yeah, that's a good pick. I don't know, maybe a little off the wall. If these two teams were there on Sunday, if Røkkr and LHG are there on Sunday, maybe in like a losers semi or something, like that might be cool. But probably a pipe dream, but it'd be
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't know.
screw it. If we're going really pipe dream, I want to see like Paris in the losers final on Sunday.
All right, I think that's time to wrap.
I do have one kind of stat of the week that I saw. I
All
saw
right,
this
all
right
right.
on Twitter as we started the podcast, and I thought it was something to shout out because we've talked about this guy a lot. People are going to be hyped to hear us shout him out, and that's Scump. We talk about this guy a lot because he's obviously the guy that carries the league in terms of news. He's in everybody's title all the time because he is the absolute goat of the scene in terms of
Well, he is the
carrying
king.
the COD League on his back. First of all, I think he dropped a 1.13 this weekend as a full-time submachine gun player, except for on Gav respawns. So shout out to that because a 1.13 in his role is not super easy. And he is only 25, 26. So like, it's not like super old for the league, but he's been playing since like MW2. So like he's been around forever. So the fact that he's still frying like this, unreal. But I just saw that was his 30th chip. And that joins Crim as the only players with 30 plus. So shout out to him. 30 chips in your career is absolutely ridiculous to think about that dominance over how long he's played. And he also became the first player to win on 10 different COD titles. First player to win on double digit different COD titles. So, I mean, you can't even really put into words what that means. 30 championships, only one other player, the GOAT, Crim6 has it. And then his 10th different COD title he's won on. I was trying to go through my head and think. I think that's got to be. I couldn't think of the 10th one. I know he's won on. If you go in chronological, starting with Black Ops, or I guess with MW3, I know he's won on MW3, Black Ops 2, Ghosts, AW, BO3, IW. Then he didn't win on World War II. He won on BO4, and then MW if you count the home series, which that's what everybody's counting, so they count that. And then I believe the other one would have to be MW2, I guess, because he didn't win on Cold War or World War II. So 10 different COD titles he's won on now, and he's a 30-time champ overall. So shout out to Scump. We always shout him out for carrying the league on his back, but it's his first win under the Optic brand since like 900 something days ago when they won the first tournament of Black Ops 4. So shout out to Scump. Crazy achievement. 30-time champion. It's almost, you can't even wrap your head around how crazy of an achievement that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that speaks for itself. I don't know if I need to pollute it with my, platitudes of words here, but yeah, I mean, we've talked before about, what's the league gonna do whenever Scump decides to give it a break but if he keeps playing like he is now, he
Three
might
young
keep
guns.
going. He might keep going, man.
Yeah, hopefully
He
these
seems to
three young
be
guns rejuvenate him so he can keep
yeah,
carrying the viewership.
exactly. He seems to be re-energized now, especially getting that long-awaited, undisputed chip, like home series. Yeah, 8 teams are there, whatever. But this is a full blown LAN major, full crowd. He's right back in his happy place. So
Yeah, and I mean, on February 6th here, he tweeted, "There's got to be light at the end of this." I responded and said, "Head up, bright future ahead for y'all." So maybe I'm a future teller. A lot of people were saying, hey, you'll have some success eventually coming up here. So there clearly was light at the end. Exactly a month later, they're Major One champions. So number 30 for him across 10 Call of Duty titles, unreal. Obviously, guys up there in the GOAT conversation. So unreal. Hopefully he keeps playing forever and keeps carrying the viewership for this scene. But I'm ready to wrap this one up because we've got another podcast to record coming up here in a few days for predictions.
yeah, let's get out of here.
All right, so that's going to do it for this one. Like I said, we've obviously got another podcast coming. This will be one of the first times we've ever dropped two full-fledged podcasts in 1 week. This one's obviously full out reactions. Next one is going to be maybe if there's any news that drops by the time we record it, probably going to record it maybe Tuesday or Wednesday night. If any news drops, we'll talk about that on there. But otherwise, it'll be predictions because we don't even have a weekend break. We're jumping right back into qualifying matches for Major 2 this next weekend. So we're gonna do that. I'll have a double podcast a week, or a rare occurrence. That's gonna do it for this one. If you guys are listening on the audio platforms, drop a follow on there if you're able, and maybe a 5-star review. If you're on YouTube, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Comment down below your thoughts on this weekend. Had a couple people telling me it was impossible that anybody other than Faze would win, and here we are. Optic are the champions of the first major, so we appreciate you guys all supporting. The support's been unreal. I almost forgot to mention we hit 400 subs on the channel. So Kyle and I both like to thank you for that. I know it's a pretty crazy milestone to think. Started by myself, just talking over some COD because I wanted a new community. As some of my friends fell out of the love for competitive COD, I wanted a little bit of a community to talk to, and here we are at 400 subs. We continue to grow, and um, the support in the last couple audio and video podcasts has been insane. So big things coming. Some big purchases have been made. Big things are coming in the future, and we look forward to continue to grow with you guys. So thank you guys so much for the support, and we will see you again this week for predictions for the first matches of Stage 2. So see you later. Hope you guys all enjoyed the major, and we'll see you in the next one.